Retro.
Are you an aspiring Jedi, or do you dabble with the dark side of the Force?
Regardless of whether you fancy yourself a defender of the light or an aspiring Sith Lord, you're going to need a lightsaber.
Podcast Stardust is pleased to partner with Saber Masters, the creators of high-quality, durable, and affordable lightsabers.
Saber Masters is preparing to launch the Ultimate Lightsaber 2.0, and right now you can get 2 for the price of 1.
So, check out the link in our show notes and go get your Ultimate Lightsabers from Saber Masters.
And don't forget to use our referral code STARDUST to save $10 at checkout.
And each purchase using our referral code helps support Podcast Stardust.
Hey, this is Catherine Tabor, Senator Padmé Amidala from Star Wars The Clone Wars. And you're listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Stay on the light side.
Hello and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And you might be expecting us to talk some Star Wars news in this episode. There just wasn't any. So we are going to pivot to some Phantom Menace trivia. But before we get into the questions, Jay, I want to remind everybody where we can be found around the internet.
You bet, Dennis. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is lying. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So yeah, Jay, when we have a show on Disney Plus, we tend to move our Star Wars news episodes to Mondays, but we record them a few days in advance. This, pulling back the curtain, this is the morning of July 4th. And we wanted to record early to get stuff out. We waited as long as possible to make this call. There just wasn't big news episodes that we could get an episode out. So the little things that we had were saving for our next news episode. But we thought it'd be fun to go back to some of this trivia that I've accumulated from the Phantom Menace as we've been doing our series on that.
Love it. Love it. We'll see how well I do on these.
Okay,
and with our luck, hopefully nothing huge will break over the weekend. But if it does, we'll just talk about it next week.
Indeed. And, it's not like you can't get those breaking news from other places. It's all over social media and other podcasts as well. So, but this trivia comes from part 4 of our series that we did back in April. And the segment of the movie is 31 minutes and 41 seconds to 44 minutes and 13 seconds. And this is the scenes where it start off with Qui-Gon meeting Watto and trying to get parts for him. So, with that in mind, let's get to the questions. Jay, the first question is, what type of parts does Qui-Gon tell Watto he needs?
Parts for a J-type Nubian ship.
Very good. That is correct. To be more specific, parts for a J-type 327 Nubian.
327.
But I'll give you the point because J-type is good enough. All right. Question number 2. What does Anakin tell Watto he was doing when he is accused of taking too long to show up?
Oh, shoot. He was cleaning something.
Right. Do you remember what?
Cleaning the workshop? Cleaning the shop?
He was cleaning the fan switches.
The fan switches. Okay.
Yeah, that's one you have to read because he says it in Huttese. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So as Qui-Gon is heading out back with Watto to take some look at some parts, he turns to Jar Jar and says, "Don't touch anything." What does Jar Jar do in response?
He touches a pit droid and turns it on.
That's actually later in the scene.
Oh, is it later in the scene?
Yes. You want to take another stab at what he does?
Oh, he sticks his tongue out behind his back.
That's correct.
Makes that little blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that gigantic tongue of his comes flying out there.
Yes.
All right. Question number 4. Where does Anakin say the deep space angels live?
On the moons of Iago.
Mm-hmm. And of course, that was his attempt to try and Sweet talk, Padmé, I suppose.
Yes.
His pickup line, "Are you an angel?" And then we
Well,
finally
these
got to.
pirates talk about them.
It's right, and we finally got to see one of these angels in the Clone Wars when Anakin and Obi-Wan went there, and that's where they got stuck. Because what was it? The name? Oh, the locals called it where all the energy would go from one asteroid to another and keep any ship from leaving.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, the only reason that I remember the moons of Iago is because you remember all of the hyperspace blogs back in
Mm-hmm.
the day on StarWars.com. Well, one of our friends, Becca Benjamin, when we would pick our little handles, she
Mm-hmm.
was Viego Angel. And because when Anakin says the moons of Viego, it almost sounds like he's saying Viego.
Got it.
So that's the only reason that I've always remembered that. So thank you, Becca, for that.
There you go.
Little
All
shout
right.
out.
Question number 5. What age does Anakin say he was, or how old was he when he first got to Tatooine?
Do you say 6?
No, he was 3. He
He
was
was
very
3.
young, or very
Okay.
little. 3, I think, is what he says.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not doing so well here.
I'm impressed that he can remember that. I can't remember anything from when I was 3.
No,
So, but
exactly. I was
no,
barely, aware of myself at that point.
it's also been 47 years since I was 3. So, hey, whatever.
Unless someone told him, like Shmi might have said, "Yeah, we came here when you were 3." That's, I think, for most of us is probably how we remember things before those self-aware
Mm,
ages.
Indeed. All right. Which hut purchased Anakin and Shmi Skywalker?
Ooh, Gardula.
Very good. Very good.
Yes,
That's
that I do
correct.
know. But lost them in a bet.
Well, that's
Watto.
actually the next question. How did
Oh.
Gordula the Hutt lose Anakin and Shmi?
Well, there you have it, in a bet.
By
Mhm.
betting on pod races.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So you anticipated the next question and got it
Oh, I
correct
must
all at the
have the
same time.
force.
And you don't even
Wow.
have access to these. Okay.
No, I do not.
And you're going to know the answer to this one because you've already said it. What kind of droid does Jar Jar clumsily activate?
Oh, the pit droid.
Indeed, he does. See, you're 6 for 8 right now. You're doing well.
Wow.
Okay,
Doing
and
a lot better than I thought.
how does one deactivate a pit droid?
You have to hit their nose.
Very good.
I love pit droids. They're so
Y-
cute.
Yeah, that one hit him in a sensitive place and he didn't actually react at all to that.
Mhm, mhm.
So, all right, what part does Watto have that he says nobody else will?
The hyperdrive part that they needed.
Yeah, can you think of the specific name?
Um, mm, mm, no, I can't.
A T-14 hyperdrive generator.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that one if I didn't write it down as he said it when I was coming up with these questions.
A T-14 hyperdrive generator. Okay.
All right, what kind of currency and how much of it does Qui-Gon have that he attempts to pay Watto with?
Well, he has Republic credits because he's like, credits will do fine. Is it boy, I'm not good with numbers. Is it
I told you when we
5,000?
did a previous trivia that the numbers are sometimes the hardest questions to get,
Yeah. Is it
especially when you're not actually told the number. You have to visually you have to visualize it, but that's not the case
yeah.
here.
Is it 5,000?
20,000 Republic Dactaries.
Dectaries. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's a
Yeah,
dectary?
I don't know, but they use it interchangeably with the word credit. So
Okay. Is that like those little chits that they have? Like the blocks?
I don't know. I hadn't thought to look it up. I should mention it there. So, all right. So, what was Jar Jar doing when Qui-Gon came back into the shop after you couldn't come to a deal with Watto?
Um, he was messing around with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, specifically,
Mm-hmm.
oh shoot. I want to say he was like attempting to eat something, but that doesn't sound right.
No, he wasn't eating anything. We'll take another guess.
Oh, he got his leg stuck on something. It was like
No,
a droid part or whatever, and he was trying to shake it off, or was that later? No, I don't
that's later in the
know.
movie. I can think of that, but
I give up.
he was juggling.
Oh my gosh, and then we know that he does that later in the Aftermath novels,
Mm-hmm. To entertain the children on
entertain the
Naboo.
children. That's right. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So what does Watto tell Anakin to do before he goes home? And then he can go home, I guess, says you.
Clean up the shop.
More specifically.
Um, um,
Clean the blank, and then you can go home.
clean the shelves,
The racks.
the racks. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the point. That's close enough.
Okay. Thanks. You're very generous.
Oh, thank you. So Jar Jar kind of has a freak out when they get outside of the shop, and he says, no, not again. These about to be crazy, and if they go out there, they're going to be robbed and crunched. But why does Qui-Gon say that is unlikely to happen there in Mos Espa?
Um, because the locals are, I don't know. Oh my gosh. How am I not like remembering this?
Because I put you on the spot. That's why.
Oh no, it's fine. And
No,
my
that's what
brain's
happens in
not
trivia when you're
working.
when you're not the
Yeah.
one that's on the spot answering. It's always easier to answer these
Oh, I
questions.
always say that, like, I would totally fail if I went on Jeopardy because, of course, it's easy when you're at home and you're thinking, "Why didn't that person know that? That's such an easy question." And then when you're put on the spot, I like my brain just shuts down, but I don't remember.
They have nothing of value, which is
I have
precisely their problem.
nothing of value.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, just as an aside, I can tell you, I just did a cruise at the beginning of June, and I don't think I've told this story on the show. I know I've told it as well, but I did a Star Wars superfan competition,
You did.
and the questions that were getting asked were really easy. But when you get started, they kind of have a warm up round for this exact problem. Is when you're on the spot, it's a lot
Mhm.
harder.
Mhm.
And then when you're, and especially when there's a speed element to it. So yeah, it's one thing when you're just kind of the passive listener and you're not the one that's trying to come up with the answers. You get the cues from whoever's trying to answer the question, and et cetera, et cetera. But when you're trying to answer them yourself, it can be difficult. So,
Well,
all
thank
right,
you
yeah.
for
So
the vote
they,
of confidence.
yeah, having failed at Wano Shop, they start wandering through Mos Espa. We're not exactly sure to where, but Jar Jar spots a tasty treat, and he goes to eat it. So the question is, how much does the frog creature that Jar Jar starts to eat cost?
Um, something pooey. I don't remember how many though. It's like, was it 4 whippy pewy or whatever it is? I don't know.
It was 7 whoopee.
Whoopee. Okay, whoopee.
Yeah,
I know it was something, but the
whoopee
number
whoopee.
eluded.
I think is what
Whoopee
it is.
whoopee is
It's
what it is? Okay.
WUPIUPI.
Okay.
So, whoopee whoopee. All right. But then he spits it out, and it lands in the bowl of Sebulba. Question 16: what kind of being is Sebulba?
He's a Doug and a very dangerous Doug at that.
That's right. That is correct.
Yay, a new one.
Hmm. So after that, he kind of makes friends with Qui-Gon and company, and then they go up to a vendor, and it's just about to the storm's about to hit, and Anakin purchased something. So question 17: what does Anakin purchase from a vendor and share with Qui-Gon in the streets of Mos Espa? Mos Espa.
Oh, it was those little pally cakes or
Pallies, very good. You got
pallies?
it.
Okay.
Yep.
See, I know food.
Okay, I need to add just more food questions in the future.
More food, less numbers.
Right. So while this is happening, Qui-Gon goes to tuck something away, and Anakin notices something. Question 18. What does Anakin notice under Qui-Gon's poncho?
His laser sword,
Yes, his
aka
lightsaber.
lightsaber. Yes.
Hmm. Okay, so from there, they end up back at the Skywalker homestead, and Anakin introduces Qui-Gon and to his mother Shmi, and then he pulls Padme back to his room to show off C-3PO. Question number 19. Which eye is C-3PO missing when Anakin activates him?
It would be okay. I have to visualize this because you're
Mhm.
looking at him. So it would be his left.
It was his right eye.
Oh, his right eye. Shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 50-50 shot and I blew
Well,
it.
yeah, of course, the challenge on that one is that you're looking at it, and then
hmm
is it his left eye or his right eye or left to us? Exactly. Okay, question number 20. What does R2D2 tell C-3PO about his parents when they meet for the first time?
That he's naked. His parts are showing.
Exactly. All right. From there, we have a scene with Darth Sidious and Darth Maul. What does Sidious tell Maul to do first once he gets to Tatooine?
Um, he's basically running reconnaissance,
He tells him an
gather
order of to do
intel
things.
to.
This is a difficult question.
It is. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. But it's a dialogue question.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's wanting him to report back on what he basically what he finds there, but I can't remember the exact wording.
Mm-hmm. Well, he says, move against the Jedi. So he tells him to go against the Jedi first, and then you will then have no trouble taking the Queen to Naboo to sign the treaty.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of a clumsy worded question. I can see why that would have been difficult to answer. Okay.
No, it's good. I don't even remember him saying that. So
Yeah. Where does Qui-Gon say he has seen pod racing before?
on Malastare.
Very good. And then our last question, number 23. What is the name of the pod race on Tatooine?
The Bunta Eve Classic.
Very good. All right.
Yay.
So you ended on a good note there. You got 14 correct out of that. So yeah, there were some difficult ones there that were very, very detail oriented.
Yeah,
But
those numbers mess me up.
yeah, well, when I first started writing these back when we did the first segment, I was going for like super challenging things just because, yeah, it was, the first thing that jumped out to me was the crawl and the word Congress appeared, but not the words Senate. And that's like the last time the Senate ever gets referred to as the Congress of the Republic. But then as I've been doing these since, I've just included more and more questions here. And yeah, some of them are challenging, but it's one of those things where you're in the moment, you're reciting the lines and you can do it right along with the movie. Right. But then I pluck you out of that environment and it's hard to come up with the answer sometimes.
Yes, it definitely is. And, especially when I haven't thought about that particular piece of information in a very long time, but
Yeah, it's
fun
been,
nonetheless.
2 months since we did that. So,
Mhm.
or 2.5 anyways. Okay. Well then, Jay, thanks for being a good sport and participating
Always
in my trivia.
love trivia.
And for everyone else, thank you for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and indulging us as we pivoted away from the news because, again, there just wasn't any. And we had fun with our little trivia section. I've got 2 more trivias that we'll probably be getting to later this month. Yeah, I just until we use them up and we get done with the segment, look for those on occasion. And if you want to make sure you get those episodes, then hit subscribe on your podcatcher of choice for Podcast Stars if you haven't done so already, and then those will download for you automatically. Of course, we have 3 shows that come out every week. Our typical format is we cover whatever shows on Disney Plus, then we have a news episode and some other discussion. And if there is no show on Disney Plus, then we'll find something else to cover as well. But again, you can get all 3 episodes every week by hitting subscribe on your podcatcher choice. And you can find the entire catalog of shows over on retrozapp.com, which is home to a bunch of other great podcasts covering everything from retro culture, the MCU, DC, Dune, Star Trek, Animaniacs, animation, all kinds of great geek topics. And as always, we greatly appreciate your 5-star ratings, reviews on whatever podcatcher it is that you do use for your podcast, especially if that's Apple Podcasts. That's a great way of helping others find the show because it generates whatever the algorithm needs. And we also greatly appreciate it when you share the show and your favorite episodes on social media with your friends. So, Jay, could you please tell everybody what our social media contacts are and where else we are located around the internet?
Of course, always my pleasure. So we are on Instagram, Facebook, and X conveniently at Podcast Stardust. And we also have our Pinterest pages that you can check out. And then we have two different formats for YouTube. So we have the classic YouTube and then YouTube Music. So head over to both of those, like, subscribe, and share those out. And as Dennis was mentioning, we also appreciate any reviews that you're willing to give. And I know both of those do support reviews as well as Spotify. So you can head over to that as well. And if you're up for some real-time chatter, you can head over to our Discord room on the RetroZap Discord server, and the link to that is in our show notes. And also in our show notes is the link to our TeePublic store, where you can find 7 different Podcast Stardust logo designs available on a plethora of products, from t-shirts, sweatshirts, to coffee mugs and tote bags, and pretty much everything in between. So once again, hit up that link in our show notes. And then we are also partnering with Saber Masters, where you can pick up one of a good number of different battle-ready lightsabers. And so if you are in the market for a lightsaber, please head over to sabermasters.com. And the link to that will also be in our show notes. And if you do happen to pick something up, make sure that you put in the code STARDUST at checkout, and that will get you an extra $10 off of your purchase. And it also helps to support the show. So with that, Dennis, I know there's lots going on with Star Trek. So why don't you let everybody know what you've got going on with your podcast Warp Trails and what you've got coming up with that?
Sure. So Warp Trails is the Star Trek podcast hosted by myself and my wife, Beth. It is exclusive to the RetroZap podcast feed. You can also find all the episodes probably easier over retrozap.com. We're planning to do a wrap-up episode for the finale of Discovery. We just happened to go on vacation as that show's wrapping up, so we just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And then we're getting ready for Lower Decks Season 5, and then the Section 31 movie that's coming out, and eventually Starfleet Academy. But our past shows cover Discovery, Lower Decks, Picard, and Strange New Worlds. So if you're into that, all the Star Trek that's been on Paramount Plus, then just head to our RetroZap and you can find all those shows, all of our episodes covering those shows there. Jay, what do you got going on in cosplay?
All right. Well, you can always find me on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay. And my main characters, of course, are Star Wars. So I have Ahsoka, 2 different versions of Hera, so both from Rebels and the Ahsoka series. Also, the 4th Sister Inquisitor from the Kenobi series, and my original concept Mandalorian based on Legends character Tahiri Vela. And I'm also dabbling in some other fun things such as fairies and such. So non-Star Wars, of course. But once again, that is at j.snipscosplay.
Okay, so upcoming on the show this Wednesday, we are going into Marvel Comics to look at the Captain Phasma miniseries from 2017. That was part of the Journey to the Last Jedi. It's a fun little read, so make sure you join us for that. And then on Friday, we are getting into episode 7 of The Acolyte. I only got 2 left, so just the next 2 weeks for that. But that'll do it for this episode, 752 of Podcast Stardust. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great week, and until next time, may the Force be with you.